We really do. Did I turn this on?
Did I mess it up? That does happen. What's that? That's awesome. It's the red button. This sounds honest. Hey, I hope that, how many here would say, I feel like I've learned something new or got some help for my life this week? Would you raise your hand? Amen. Any of those, right? And I really hope that some of you have realized that you need to turn from your adult stealing ways. Like some adults will. You know.
What's going on?
I want to say thank you to the other preachers, Brother Nehemiah, of course, and Brother Jesse. And, I want to say thank you to our younger preachers for getting up and preaching. I also want to say thank you to Brother Dave and the team for encouraging young preachers, but not exalting them.
Amen. Yeah, good.
Okay, but John and I were talking last night, and there's just this thing where we're trying to encourage young people who want to preach, and we just kind of leave everyone else out.
Right.
Like, man, you young preacher, God can do something with you. Woohoo! Sorry, ladies. Maybe y'all can marry one of them.
It's okay, don't.
It's rare that I don't talk through a sermon with my wife ahead of time.
Yeah.
So many scriptures, some of the insights tonight came from her.
Amen.
That's free help. But if my wife doesn't have her own walk with the Lord and her own insight spiritually, then I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Right? I praise God I didn't marry somebody that's like, honey, what do you think about this? And it's like, what do you think? You know? I don't know. Some people, they like that. That's not Brother Dan. That's not Brother Dan. Listen, I said this, I was just talking to somebody last night and said this. If God hasn't gifted you in one area, it's because He has in another.
Right.
Right? And if anything, if you see, now listen. If you see a young man who's preaching and God's gifted them that area, I hope you'll say, hey, man, that's awesome. Where's God gifted me?
Amen.
I want to get after it like they're getting after it.
Amen.
We should inspire one another, not compete with one another.
Good.
Right? And, well, I don't, and this is the thing. Oh, I don't think God's done anything for me. You read your Bible, 1 Corinthians 12. Yes, He has. Yes, He has. He said every member in the body as it please Him. And now listen, this is what's up. You may have to wait 10 years. Right? You may have to wait 15 years before you totally figure it out. On top of that, you might be so buried in your sin, you can't see what God's doing in your life. It's not even the message yet. Comments. Okay. Hey, I want to let you know tonight's Wednesday night. And down in, that's amen. That's right. Wednesday night. That's the guy I told you about. Amen and everything. I love it. My home church, Faith Baptist Church, my pastor, our whole staff has been praying for you specifically. On top of that, our whole church family is praying for you. And I saw my wife, I said, man, I feel bad. And somebody brought this, somebody was Brother Dave actually, it was a while ago. You kind of feel bad because you're the point man for the operation, right? And you're getting all this credit. And it's not like I don't do anything. I'm not pretending that. But at the same time, this is a team effort.
Right.
I mean, when Brother Dave invited Brother Dan up, he invited a whole lot of prayer, a whole lot of people, and a whole lot of work. And it's not just, well, I got my little sermon notes. It's not that. And so part of the power, the manifestation of the power that we've seen this week is your parents back home praying for you. Right? Bible Baptist Church praying for you. Evening and morning and at noon, just as Pastor Duffett said on Sunday morning. People in Tacoma, Washington. Right? Come on down and visit us sometime. We don't have any moose. We got the Mariner moose. And he's about the most exciting thing that the Mariners got going on. I wish I was back home to drop that one. Woo! Okay. All right. Hey, I wanna echo something Brother Dave said. I'm trying to get all these things out real quick. I want to echo what Brother Dave said. Thank you for not just looking after the kids, but letting them know they belong here.
Amen.
Some of us, not all of us, grew up in ministries where kids were an annoyance. Little kids may not have it all figured out, but they're smart enough to know when they're not wanted.
That's right. Yes, you're right.
And you just sit here, you be quiet, you don't cause any problems. And this is, I hate to say this, man, I grew up around this, but you don't make me look bad. I feel like the kids around here, they realize, hey, I'm not in all the services and everything. This is the team, and I'm thank God for that. Because the pendulum can swing too far the other way. I've been there too. But I'm so thankful that the young people here realize, hey, I belong here. People like me here, and praise the Lord for that. That's a big deal to me, because of what Brother Nehemiah said. Like right now, it's like they're just little nobodies, right? And I mean, I don't mean it that way, you know what I mean? But they're not, when we think about ministry, we're not. But yeah, they are the future, right? And when you anyway, I'll get another. Okay. Hey, I don't know if any of the food people are here. Thank you so much for everyone who has cooked those meals. I hadn't intended to eat so much at camp, and I'm so glad I have. I mean that. Food costs a lot of money when you're running a camp, and the kind of the temptation is, well, we don't have to spend a lot of money on the food. We can just have, but I mean. They're cooking the chicken way ahead of time and really prepping it so it tastes good. And I'm just so thankful for every person who came in and they're in the kitchen last night. Hey, taste this. This tastes good. We want to make sure this tastes good for the kids. And a big Brother Dan. And so amen to that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to get into some of that probably coming up. And then, let's roll. 1 Samuel 17. Now, I don't mean this to sound braggadocious, but honestly, you can't even imagine how many sermons I've preached out of 1 Samuel 17 and have so many more to go. This is just such a youth-rich text. And I'm not trying to create something that's not there, but it's just such an awesome text. What a wonderful, wonderful text this is for us. Now, we talked last night about David and coming down to battle and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm going to jump ahead for us. And I'm going to get to the verse number 32 to start off. 1 Samuel chapter number 17 and verse number 32. And David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him." And I'm not going to relive the illustration from last night, okay? But just got to picture that, Here's David, the young man, let nobody's heart fail because of him. Thy servant, now watch this. These are the words I want. Thy servant will go. Thy servant will go. Okay? And fight with the Philistine. Okay, now, let's say a couple things here. I believe a lot. Okay, I'm trying to be careful with this, and it's difficult, but I haven't been in all the sessions, and I don't think it's right for me to speak on behalf of other people. Okay, though I believe it to be a truth. So I have to speak for my sessions, and I don't want that to sound arrogant because that's not my heart, okay? But I believe a lot of young people were helped this afternoon in this afternoon session.
Sure.
I think you, now, having said that, I don't think you expected to get that much help. I also believe that. I think you sauntered in, let's hear the points, let Brother Dan do his deal, and then we'll head off to Angel Rock, right? Hey, and if you felt that way, I'm not rebuking you because that was my mindset. Hey, son, there are times I'm preaching, I wish I was done, right? No, okay. Thank you for not amening it, Brother Anthony. Appreciate that. All right. But I was on the tip. Now, can you say, and don't say, but would you look within and say, hey, I might know someone who should have been here today. They would have got some help. The smallest things in our lives can make some of the biggest differences. And I'm going to give you a point that seems so absurdly underrated as a main point in a message at a teen camp. But it's one of those little things that will make a huge difference in your life. Okay? Everybody's here on the around the battlefield, not on it. And David says this one thing. I'll go. Point number 1. Show up.
Good.
See, we're trying. Sometimes we're searching for like deep biblical truth, and we just miss the simplistic things that really make the biggest difference. Do you know how Brother Nehemiah has been a faithful bus captain for all these years? You know how God rose him up to where he is? He already told you. He showed up. He showed up.
Yep.
Oh man, so-and-so, boy, he's memorized all these scriptures. Master Club, he had 18 billion badges. He had a couple other kids carry all his best. He's super dork. He's awesome, man. We love him, and he's awesome. Hey, but we're so lucky that he wants to be on our bus route, and then all of a sudden doesn't show up.
Yeah, come on.
I don't care how many awards you got in your bedroom, or how super spiritual you think you are, or how many verses you've memorized, or how many camps you've been to, or how many times you've been laying at the altar. There's not a lot we can do with you if you just don't show up.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Right? It's underrated.
Yeah. Right.
And listen, you could have come in this afternoon, carnal as can be, not wanting, not looking for anything, and still got a blessing just because you showed up.
Come on. Come on.
There's going to be times in your Christian life you don't want to go to youth class.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, don't think all the workers want to go every That's true, right? There's going to be times you don't want to. Do you know how you're going to get the blessing? Do you know how you're going to get what God has for you? This is really deep. Show up.
Good. Come on. Yeah.
Walk into class. Hey, if you shower, bonus for the rest of us. Not a requirement. Show up. Show up. It's like I say, it's so underrated, yet it is such a powerful reality.
Yeah. Man.
Brother Dave, I was going to have my devotions, but so I got up late, I'm tired. And you got 800 excuses. Do yourself a favor. Show up.
Good. Yeah. Man.
You got time for you and God.
Yeah.
Show up at your devotions.
Good.
Stop being AWOL. Stop being absent to your devotions
Yeah.
for your Christian life.
Yeah.
Show up. Well, I've been getting a lot. I don't care. Show up.
Man.
Step 1, show up.
Good.
Intend to go. And again, it's a, well, we got all these reasons. Well, I'm not this and I'm not that. That's got nothing to do with nothing. Right? You show up, God will begin to make you what you're supposed to be. Well, I don't think showing up is that big of a deal. Really? Because at a time when kings went out to battle,
Yeah.
David stayed back. And I don't think David sinned by staying back. I've heard that message. But because he didn't show up to the battle, that left David in a place he shouldn't, right? A place he shouldn't have been necessarily. I'm not saying he sinned by walking on the roof, but he put himself in the path of temptation.
Right. Yeah. Man.
Yes.
Well, Brother Nehemiah, he can go with Chad. They can go and visit, the kids and the dogs and all that. I'll just stay home and
Come on now.
watch some TV.
Come on. Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
I'll just check out something on my phone or on the internet.
Sure.
I'll just call so-and-so and talk to them. Do you know how many young people have got themselves in a bad situation because at the root of it, they should have been somewhere
Yeah,
else
yep.
and decided not to show up?
Yep. Good. Good.
Do you know how many heartbreaks you avoid by just going to the place you're supposed to be?
Right. Yep.
And you listen, this is the craziest thing. So you got up, you're tired, whatever else, you saunter off to class, right? You go to the bus route on Saturday morning, whatever. You go back home, and in your world, it's like nothing's really that different. And you have no idea what you just avoided.
Right.
Sure.
Good. Come on now.
You have no idea the path you were about to walk down, and you avoided the whole collision by simply showing up. And David says, hey, I'll go. How many showed up to the battlefield? Well, David.
Yeah. Yep.
What's the difference between him and all these other guys? He was the one guy who showed up.
Yep.
Now, I'll fight the giant. It's not that Israel didn't have people. It's not that they didn't have warriors. The difference, David was the one guy willing to step on the field.
Good.
Hey, be the one girl. Be the one guy willing to just show up.
Right.
You're not the smartest. You're not the brightest. You're not the most popular. You're not the most beautiful. You're not the most handsome. Right? You're not the tallest. You're not whatever. You're not the richest. You're not the most happiest. You're not the coolest. You don't use any of these trends anymore, or terms. But you know what? Be the person who shows up.
Right.
Good.
Amen.
Good.
I love Brother Nehemiah's testimony because I've just seen it so many times in ministry. Hey, so-and-so, they left. They're not bus captain anymore.
Yep.
Okay, well, we don't want to close down ministry.
Yeah.
That's not an option.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's showing up?
Yeah. That's good.
A guy who can't drive.
Yep.
He's showing up
Yep.
every week.
Come on.
Make him the bus captain.
Amen.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, we'd love to have the older people got the licenses, got the talents, got the ability. We'd love to have all of them. Problem is, they're hiding in the caves,
Good.
afraid of the battlefield.
Come on now.
We can't get anything done with them. You know what we need? We just need a young person
Good.
who say,
Yep.
I'll show up.
Hey,
Good.
yes. Come on.
1 Samuel, you go back a couple chapters, 1 Samuel, and you find Jonathan. Different battlefield. David's not the only one on the battlefield.
Right.
Yes.
Jonathan, the world's worst strategic battle plan in history. I am not kidding you. He goes to, he's got his armor bearer with him. Traditionally youth.
Right.
Traditionally youth. Doesn't say, and he had, you know, Billy with him, who was 14. Doesn't say that. Just says that his armor bearer was with him. And he turns to his armor bearer and says, now listen. I just love this. I'm sorry. I make myself laugh. And it's not just the mirror. Thank you for no amen there either. I really, thank you. So, has it been a long time? He's like, I wrote it in my Bible. He says, hey, and I don't know if you realize this, Jonathan snuck out.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not like people voted he'd go.
Yeah.
He had to sneak off without Dad knowing it, right? Oh, it's in the Bible right there. I'm just kidding. So he says to his armor bearer, he says, hey, let's go over here, discover ourselves to the Philistines.
Right.
Let this garrison,
Yeah. Yeah.
aka not 3 people,
Right. Yeah.
but let's go over there. Right? That's what does he say? Do all that is in your heart.
Yep.
Behold,
Right.
Yep.
I am with you.
Good.
Yep.
Come on.
Wow.
You know, he didn't say, what are the odds? How many are in a garrison?
Right.
How many swords we got? You really think it's a good idea? How about Saturday?
Right.
He was offered one of the worst plans in history, and I haven't gotten completely to it. And this is what he says.
Yep.
I'll show up.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
You do whatever you want. I'm your armor bearer.
Right.
I'll show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many young people don't get into ministry because they feel like they're not enough. You're not smart enough, you don't know enough Bible, you don't have a public speaking ability, you can't play an instrument, so just who are you? Well, let me ask you a question. Can you show up? Because I know the nursery needs that. I know the buses need that,
Come on.
right?
Yep.
I know classes need that. Can you show up?
Come on.
Yeah, I got ministry. This is going to shock you. I showed up.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
it. Jonathan, I got to tell you the rest of this, even though you've probably read it. So Jonathan, finally, they see the garrison. He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is about fun. If they bid us come up, we'll know the Lord's delivered them. Say, what? That sounds like they found out we're here and we're dead meat. But if they say stay there, don't worry about it, we'll know. It's like, either plan is horrible. It's like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? No, okay. You want to go pick up kids in North Pole. Oh, right. Are there any other areas we can kind of go reach?
Yeah. Come on.
Pastor, where do you want that bus route?
Yeah.
Good.
Do all that's in thy heart, preacher. You want a bus route over there? I'll go.
Amen.
I'll go. Not my job to figure it out. My job to show up.
Hey, that's good.
By the way, you know how you become a great leader in ministry? And then you're like, this is obvious. Show up.
Good.
Let me ask you this. If it's so obvious, why do so few people do it?
Good.
Yeah.
Come on now. That's good.
Why do so few people do it? Absent in our devotions, absent in our classes, absent in our responsibilities, our ministries. Just show up.
Yeah.
Just show up. David said, hey, here am I. I'll go. I'll show up. Oh, yeah. This is a fairly young group, in my opinion, of youth ministry. Youth ministry cycle. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yep.
And there's times where you have, 16 to 18. You got an older youth group. It's predominantly older people, and that brings its own challenges. And then you have a 13 to 16 youth group, or 11 to 12-year-olds. That was me. And you've got a predominantly younger youth group. There are some advantages and disadvantages to a younger youth group. And I'll tell you, now listen. One of the biggest advantages is you got years to build.
Right.
Right.
Amen.
You don't realize that.
Amen.
I mean, I get guys in and they're great. Their family moved in, and we get them at 16. Takes about a year to acclimate. They're 17. They really start getting growing. They really start, and then they graduate on me. It's like, are you kidding me? That's not fair.
Come on.
Yeah.
But you young people, you're going to be here for 4, 5, 6 years.
That's right.
But now hear me.
Good. Come on now.
Here's the problem, though. Next year, you gonna be at camp?
Right.
That's good, man.
Because I know some kids who were last year that made decisions I believed were genuine, but they ain't here.
Yeah.
No, it's not a secret.
Yeah.
It's not a secret. Show up, and let me say this: take ownership.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest problem in a lot of our youth ministries. You show up to youth ministry, you show up to youth class instead of being youth ministry, instead of being the youth class.
That's good. That's good.
You think activities are boring? Help change it.
Amen.
You think kids aren't friendly? Be the one who's friendly.
That's good now. Come on now.
Show up. Right? There's a missions trip, show up. There's soul winning, show up. Well, I'm not this and I'm not that and I'm busy. Show up.
Good.
Yeah. Good.
I promise you, 5 years from now, you look back and go, man, that old guy knew what he was talking about.
Sir.
I'm telling you, it will
Amen.
change not just this ministry, it will alter part of the course of your church
Right.
by having an army of armor bearers who say,
Sure.
what does Pastor want? What does Brother Dave want? What do our leaders want? What does my family, my parents want? Hey, here am I.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'll just show up.
Yes.
Hey, make a determination in your heart right now. Not showing up, not an option.
Good.
Not an option. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to be a part. How many young people's lives have been changed by showing up to something they didn't think anything about? They didn't think it would be special or anything like that. They just showed up and God used that in their lives.
Amen.
Okay,
Good.
we made it through point number 1. That's a very good job. I commend you. Okay. Number 2, show up. 2, okay, this is a little tougher. Open up. Open up. So Saul says to David, he says, hey, you're not able to fight with this man. You're but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. This is verse 33. Verse 34. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and I smote him and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him and slew him. Man, I would have loved to have been there when he told that story.
Yeah.
And see all the men of war standing around and be like, what? What did this guy do?
Yeah.
And remember, listen, David did not say, I took my slingshot,
Right. Yep.
or I took a long stick, or I kicked him in the rear. Now, listen, I don't claim to be a specialist in animals, right? And I know that grizzlies are the least friendly of all bears. Yeah, I don't think Yogi was a grizzly bear, okay? David said I caught him by his beard. Okay, lion or bear, beard is here. Okay. Paws are here, mouth is here. I love David. I caught him by his beard and slew him. I don't know. Now I'm going to elaborate like some preachers, right? So David walked in with his fur coat. I'm going to cross-referencing. I also grabbed by his beard, slew. Wow. David, and something you may not be expecting, but that David was willing to open up about himself to make this thing happen. If we're going to have a successful youth group, we're going to have to hear some feedback from teenagers.
Amen. Come on now.
Teenagers willing to open their hearts and open their lives and open their feelings to bring this thing to success. I'm serious about that. And let me give you an illustration. Youth to me is like you guys are up in a little plane that you've never flown before, right? We're not in the plane. We can't see what you see. We can't feel what you feel. We're in the control tower. Now we can see the plane. We can hear you, right? We got our microphone, we got our headphones, or abnormally big headphones, and we can see you. Adult stealing. We can see you. And we say, hey, listen, what are you seeing? What are you seeing up there? What experience is turbulent? What's going on? Well, I just don't want to talk to adults. Well, then you land the plane by yourself.
Good, yeah, come on now.
Now, Alaska has more pilots per capita than any state in America.
Wow.
Okay? So this should be a home run illustration for Brother Dan. Okay? Listen, you know you would never want to try to land a plane that you have never learned how to.
Right.
Some of you, now listen. Some of you are traversing and going through things you've never been before.
Right.
Right? Guys, not too many years ago, girls are yucky. And now you're like, girls are not so yucky. or more like this, girls are not. Yeah. Hey, what happened, right? What happened? And you're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know if you're broken. What's going on? Right? And all this stuff. Listen. If you really want to continue to grow, there's going to be part of this thing of, hey, listen, here's how I feel. Here's what I'm going through. Right? And I like Brother Dave said yesterday, he said a lot of people stop him, unfortunately, but fortunately, to say, hey, Brother Dave, I got myself in sin.
Yeah.
My plane's in a tailspin, Brother Dave. What am I going to do about that? You don't open up and start giving some feedback and explain things, you're going to be troubled. You don't want to make a youth ministry awesome. Have young people who don't talk back.
Right.
Talk back indicates trying to be the authority.
Right.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, I don't think we should do that. We're not taking a survey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Come on now.
Yeah.
Oh man, where was I? I gotta remember. This is a good story, kind of on the horizon here. Gotta remember it though. Yeah. I was it was some youth activity or something, and I'd asked a young person. I said, "Hey, I need you to go do this," and they were like, "Well, why don't you do that?" And I was like, "This is not a discussion." So I told them, "This is not a discussion, right? I kindly told you what to do. You're not having feedback here." And they were sitting there trying. You know what they're trying to do? Take authority.
Right.
Right.
You can't take authority from your parents, and we don't want you to take authority from, try to take authority from the leaders God's put in your life. Now hold on. When you hear that, then you start to think sometimes, well, then they don't want to hear from you. I just need to shut my mouth. No.
Yeah, come on now.
No. During the preaching, yes. No. Listen, this may be news to you. We really want to hear from you.
That's right.
That's right.
Amen. Yeah.
Yes.
And more so, your jokes and these types of things, we want to know your opinions.
Right.
And your feelings. Now listen, you say, I'm not good at that, and I want to help you with that, okay?
Good.
Now let's say we're going to talk to Brother, this is an example, let's say we're going to talk to Brother Dave about camp. Okay, you say, I don't have any idea, or a counselor or somebody who's affected your life. Say, I have no idea what to say. I'm going to tell you this, I'm amazed how often that I'm with teenagers, and they come and they want so desperately to talk to me, but they have no idea what to say.
Right. Yes.
And they show up and they're like, hey, Brother Dan, And they just don't know what to say. And I don't want to pick on them. I've been there, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you some things. Let me help you with something. You know what we'd like to hear is from you and your perspective and how you feel.
Good.
And you go, I never thought that was important before. It really is, but it's got to be done in the right spirit, the right way. Okay? So you show up. Now, we'll just fill it in. Hey, Brother Dave, or hey, counselor, hey, person, right? Now, what has happened to you? I enjoyed. I learned.
Yeah.
I felt like.
Sure.
I met.
Good.
Yeah.
Mom.
What happened to you?
Yes.
We want to know.
Right.
Right? I fell in. Whatever. Right? And then fill it in. Let me give you an example of this, okay? Hey, Brother Dave, that was a really great message. Get out of here, you teenager. No. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay? That's not bad. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not picking on that. Appreciate that. But let's take a little different approach. Stop ahead of time. Don't try to freestyle. That's not going to work. Stop ahead of time and think this. What did I like about the message?
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
Hopefully it's more than just jokes.
Mom. Yeah.
But and then that's not bad because I like jokes and I like sermons that aren't boring. So I'm all about that. But what did I like about the sermon? Oh, well, he used this verse. This verse was really good. Do you know how many preachers would love to hear that feedback?
Right. Come on now.
Hey, Brother Nehemiah, you used that verse in Romans, and the Lord really spoke to me out of that.
Mom.
Do you see a difference between that was a good message?
Right.
Okay, thank you. That verse in Romans is one I've been memorizing. That really helped me tonight.
Good. Mom.
You know, as a preacher, he's going to go, mental note, that verse helped a teenager.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, you're helping adults with your feedback. You go, really? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. We're not trying to raise you up to think you're a bunch of worthless teenagers until you turn 20. That's not this attitude. That's not the spirit. That's why Brother Dan enjoys coming here.
Mom.
Right? You got a cloud of witnesses on your team, on your side, supporting you, but we need your help. We got to hear from you.
Mom.
You may not realize that. Hey, Brother Dave, I really enjoyed this activity. I had a lot of fun. Hey, Brother Kyle, I met this new person I've never met before. So-and-so really enjoyed that. Hey, I enjoyed this meal of all the meals. This is one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite meals. I really appreciate that.
Mom.
Young people, now listen to me. Young people, you go, man, I'm afraid to talk to adults. You talk like I just said. You're going to have adults who want to talk to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mom. Come on now.
Preachers want to know how they're preaching to help people and to give the message of God. And when you start giving them feedback about what actually helped you and how it helped you, they're going to have a lot of interest.
Mom.
I'm not talking about baiting people so you can get attention. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about taking some time and some feedback. And I loved how David, they were like, hey man, you're not qualified. David was willing to open up his heart and life and say, now listen, let me tell you a little bit about myself.
It's good. It's true.
Now, obviously, you and I don't have David's resume,
Yeah.
okay? I'd love to be a King, let me tell you the story. I was at a camp up in Alaska, and there was a moose and there was a bear, and I wet myself. Wouldn't be quite as powerful, you know? All right. Okay, here we go. Show up. Show up. Be willing to open up.
Good.
You know why people don't say amen? Because then we know what you're thinking and
Right.
puts you out there, draws attention to you. Now I know there's some who are seeking attention, and we're not going to get into that, but we don't throw ourselves out there.
Right.
And I'm with you, and I so appreciated Brother Dave's honesty in the message. I kind of get tired of that preaching where it's like people don't feel that way.
Right.
You ought to stand out like a sore thumb. You ought everybody laughing and looking at you. No, listen, if you want that, I'm so sorry for whatever you've been through that turned you that direction. But the rest of us don't. The rest of us don't. But our God is more important than the thoughts of other people. And so there's going to be times where we got to open our heart up and open our mind up or open our mouth up and say, hey, I got to open myself up to this situation and try to be the best I can be for Christ.
Yeah.
Right?
Mom.
All right, I'm going to keep moving. Okay, so show up, open up, and here we go. I love this one. Follow up.
Yeah.
Follow up. So, in my Bible, I'm turning to the page. I'm going to verse 52. All right, let's go to 51. It's not essential, but it's cool. Verse 51. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine. Okay. Let's jump into the story real quick. Where are all of the, other than Goliath and his shield guy who's probably running really quickly, or like, Goliath, get up. Where are the Philistines according to the Bible as best we know? Right? There was this battlefield, this kind of valley. They're up on the hillside, right? How many have ever sat in the cheap seats? You know what I'm talking about? Oh yeah, this is awesome. That dot hit this dot, and that thing happened. And, oh, the light went off. Somebody scored a goal. I mean, that's kind of how it is, you know. Man, if you can sit so close, of course, you see a few people get hit with a hockey puck down in expensive seats. It's like, I'm not paying to get hit. No, thank you. But you're way up there, and you've been in a stadium, and these. You know, we had, for years, we had the Seattle Supersonics, and then they got stolen, taken over, and started winning a bunch of competitions. Anyways, we had, man, back in the day, we had Sam Perkins. He played at North Carolina with Michael Jordan. And Big Smooth is what they called him, because he looked like he was half asleep when he played. Anyways, we had all these players, and I remember one day we were at a Sonics game, and my friend was like, hey, I know this place we can run down, and there's this little place you can stand as the players come off the court and they're getting ready to head into the tunnel. It's not a seated area. I know where it is. Let's run down there. I'm like, oh, dude, that's so cool. Now, I've been sitting up in the seats, right? The players look like normal-sized people. And then we run down there, and these just Sasquatches come off the court. Here's the missing link, guys. And we're all standing there, and it's like, what? I mean, Sam Perkins' hands looked like it could just wrap all the way around a basketball and touch his fingers again. I mean, his hands were, this guy was, I was like, are you kidding me? But they don't look that big from the cheap seats, right? You see how perspective changes. Now listen, this is what I wonder, and I'm not saying the Bible tells me that. How many people do you think really understood that little David, who was running at Goliath, threw a stone, and it hit Goliath right here, and he fell over dead? How many do you think that really happened? Or at least knocked him out? I think they're going, well, Goliath fell over. Oh! He's going to let the little kid get close, and then he's going to get it. That's what I think happened. Not saying the Bible says that, but if I was up on the hill, right, looking down, right, maybe they were all afraid at that point. I doubt it. Right. And and that's part of the reason why, because David fulfilled his promise.
Yeah, right. Yep.
They didn't know Goliath was dead. We're sure he was dead.
Yep.
Verse 51, David helps them with a visual. He went to Stephen's class. He's like, I need a visual to illustrate Goliath's death. Verse 51, therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine and took his sword. Right. Oh, what's Goliath doing? Dude, he let that guy get his sword. So Goliath could be ticked. Oh, he touched his sword. And he drew it out of the sheath thereof and slew him and cut off his head therefore. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. When did they see he was dead? Not when the stone hit him. Not when the stone hit him. They're like, hey, Goliath, get up. Then now I don't know what they thought about the nation of Israel. They didn't think much at the time. But this was the new thinking that had just occurred. Their teenagers are killing champions. I don't even want to meet the dad. Right? That's how we think. Verse 52. And when the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines. No, listen. Sometimes when you stand up for God, you're going to feel all alone. No, stay with me, okay? But if you will follow that thing through to the end,
Amen.
You'll find out that some people stand up to join you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this nation of fearful people, I hate to call them cowards because they didn't have training, they didn't have weapons, so it's easy to pick on them, and I don't want to do that. But they were just afraid. And I think I would have been there. So I'm going to be real careful. I'm like, yeah, me and Dave would have been out there. Let's handle our business, Dave. Yeah, right. But here they are. They're all hiding. Now, I told you what it was probably like in my mind on the Philippine side. Philistines, not the Philippines. Those are nice people. Yeah, what's going on there, brother? It's the worst time when you're saying something and your brain is like, hey, that wasn't right. It's like, what wasn't right? I don't know. It wasn't. Does somebody have a recording of what I just said? From the back. You said Philippines. It's Philistines. Oh, that's why they're all looking at you like that. I told you what the Philistines looked like. What do you think it was like on Israel's side? Oh, man. What is David doing? What's this guy? Is it a death wish? I don't know about you. This is my mind. I want to clarify. Eliab's sitting there with his brothers. I told you. This guy's going to give himself an idiot. What's he doing down there? This is this exact kind of stuff he does at home, too. All this kind of stuff. Yeah, you and your family. All the families like that is what happened. I will verify that. Oh, Goliath fell down. Oh, no. Dave, Dave, it's a trap, buddy. Stay away from him. Get away from him, Dave. He's just playing, man. He's got you. Dave's got a sword. What's going on? And what came? The shout. Yeah! Come on, girls! Get him! Do you believe one teenager can turn a youth ministry from a bunch of scared teenagers to a bunch of bold teenagers? Because I do. I do. But now listen to me. I believe one sibling can inspire other siblings to live for God.
Yeah.
But now listen, but you're not going to do it with one decision.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
One altar call at camp. You got to follow it through.
Good. Amen.
That's good. You're right.
They pursued the Philistines. You study the life of David. He was pursuing the Philistines pretty much all his life.
Yeah.
David followed through.
Yeah.
It's a part of showing up.
Yeah.
You made a decision at camp. I love it. I don't doubt it. I don't question its sincerity or validity. But now listen to me. The rest of life is not camp.
Right.
This is one battlefield. Your home's another one. It's not the only time David met the enemy. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if you know this or not. Because of David, mighty men began to rise up in the nation of Israel. They didn't have they did not have a history of warriors.
Right.
But they began to rise.
Yeah.
Men began to do things, this may surprise you, beyond David.
Yeah. Yep.
Good.
Right?
Right.
There was a warrior that pulled his sword out, and there was an onslaught of the enemy, and he just stood his ground, ended up killing hundreds of them.
Yeah.
When he was done, he was so battle fatigued, the Bible says his hand clave to the sword. They literally had to pry the sword out of his hand.
Amen.
That's right.
Man, you heard about some of the stuff, those 30-7 mighty men of
Yeah.
David,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So David, Goliath's brothers would all get taken out
Right. Yeah.
by other men who I assume some, if not all, were sitting on a battlefield and watching a teenager follow all the way through with what he said he was going to do.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's good.
He told his brother, he told the king, oh, you know I like you this. He told Goliath.
Yeah. He did.
And he followed it all the way through.
Good. Come on now.
Man, I'm at camp. I want to live for God. Love it. Hey, you know what? You keep that same fire at home,
Yeah.
in your school,
Right.
right? With your friends, with your family.
Right.
Following it through is where you really establish your testimony for God.
That's right.
Anybody can make the one-time decision.
That's right.
And I'm all for the first decision. I'm not mocking that. But you follow it through.
Yeah.
So a lot of you, 12, 13, 14. Where are we going to be when you're 18?
Yeah.
Good now.
Do we have an
Come on.
army of young people
Come on.
following it through?
Yeah, come on.
Or, well, yeah, that, that's when I was 14. But when I got 15, I met this girl. Oh, man. If I've ever seen a reason young men leave
That's right.
God,
Yep. Come on now.
there's some Delilah in there. Oh, wait, we've got it. I'm so sorry. Okay, hey, calm down. Hey, you're gonna get Jezebels right there. Some Jezebel. From the back, the girl jumps up and runs across. By the way, our story, Ahab, the vineyard, Jezebel arranged the assassination.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't think women don't have an influence.
Right.
That's right.
Man, that's not right.
Yeah.
There's stuff out there. And there's no Jezebels here, so praise the Lord for that. She's out hanging out with,
What's his toes?
you, rarely am I confused. You've done it. Congratulations. Jezebel's out with what's his toes. Why not what's his name? Why do his toes come into play? Are you trying to draw attention from my Philippians? Or I can't remember what I said. Hey, where are you, amener? She's out with Judas. The joke is so long. Just go. Keep moving. Follow it through, Brother Dan. Follow it through. I might as well just get the sticky notes back out. The adult Steelers going. Sounds like a football team. Follow it through. Follow it through. I got one last point. You guys are doing great. Let me give you one last point. This is found over in the book of Ephesians. And I could have stayed in our text, but I really want you to see these verses. They're really powerful. In the book of Ephesians, chapter number 4, I really enjoy, I don't want to ever take away from a message or distract from its main points, but I really enjoy all the laughter. I hope some of you realize that you just had more fun through the week listening to preaching and teaching than you do with your friends.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm so sick of the world lying and saying that serving God's boring and you can never have any fun. You may be boring, but God's not. And serving God is one of the greatest, it's the greatest joy I have. Because part of my walking with God is my family, is my ministry, and all these things. And, I'm just going to go off. Okay, detour. Workers. So I might have told this last year. I can't remember. I'm sorry if it's repetitive, but one day I got a letter from a guy who was married. He'd already been to Bible college, got married, had kids. He's in ministry somewhere. And out of the blue, I get a letter in the mail, and that's weird. I'm like, people still doing that? I mean, other than junk ads,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's weird. I walked out and told my wife, I'm like, hey, I got something from so-and-so. And I just figured, birth announcement, send a gift, something. And I tear it open, and it's an actual letter. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And I start reading it. This is a young man who grew up from start to finish in our youth ministry. His older brother was ahead of him. And anyways, he'd been through Bible college. I mean, it'd been a long time, right? And I started reading this letter, and it says, Dear Brother Dan, I was going through some of my old stuff from college, and I found this paper, and that's why he mailed it to me, because he wanted me to close the paper. And he said, and I'm like, Lord, please don't let me get choked up. He said, we had basically a class assignment that they had to write a paper on why they're in the ministry. And he said, I'm in the ministry because I saw how much you enjoyed it.
Wow, that's good. It'll work.
He never said,
Thank you.
because you had the highest standards. You led the most people to Christ. Never said all that. And I'm for some of those things. But he said, you always seemed like you loved the ministry. And I wanted to get into the ministry.
That's good.
Amen.
That's good.
And Do our young people want to be in the ministry when they see us in the ministry? It's so easy to make the ministry, because of the weights that come with it and the burdens, it's so easy to make the ministry look like a dirge. Then we get all upset because our kids don't want to give their life to Christ. But you let one teenager who may be standing in the shadows of the battlefield, scared, unsure, uncertain, see a Christian worker step forward and say, man, I love me some serving God.
Amen.
And I promise they'll start stepping out of the shadows with a shout. Let's take up ministry. This is awesome. Let's be a part of this. That's my detour. Okay. Ephesians 4, 14 and 15. That ye henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, carried about with every wind of doctrine, but by the sleight of men and the cunning craftiness whereby they lay in wait to deceive. Oh, okay, I'm going to try not to preach another message, but let me just touch on this verse because it's hard to be here and not say anything. There are, now listen, are you with me? Tears, are you okay? Are you okay? I know it's long. You're doing great. You're doing great. Just hang in there because I care about you and I'm going to give you everything I got, okay? It's tough on me. I only get a week, man. And I was telling my wife today, man, I thank God Brother Dave gave some day sessions. It's just, last year just didn't feel like enough. I have more to go, to give. And so he says here, hey, that there are crafty, cunning people laying in wait to deceive who? Who's the context? Spiritually immature or spiritual children.
Yeah.
Good.
There's an element of our world that lays in wait to deceive you. And I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, right? But the Bible makes clear that there's deception that lurks out there.
Yeah.
Girls, there are guys who would deceive you. Brother Dave just nailed that today. Who would deceive you about how much they care about you. And all these other things so they can get what they want. Not trying to make it sound like every guy's a nasty perv in youth ministry, because that's not it. I think we have some great guys. And I'll tell you this, there's a lot of potential over here.
Right.
But that's going to be determined and realized not by what I say, but by what you do.
Right.
And there's a group out there waiting to deceive young people. Breaks my heart to see. Verse 15. But speaking the truth in love. Youth workers, helpers, observers, freeloaders, whatever. We need more people speaking the truth in love. How many of us? Oh, I got an earful of the truth many times. But love wasn't even in the same zip code. Oh, Brother Dan, you said we this, you said we that. It's the truth. But only because we love you. Right? Brother Dave gets up, he preaches it straight because he loves you. He don't want to deceive you. He don't want to pretend stuff's okay when it's not okay. He don't want to pretend stuff's going to be fine when it's really going to hurt you. Right? He don't want to deceive you. It's the truth in love. And what's the result of that? Welcome to real youth ministry. Not to sound snotty, but speaking the truth in love, here it is, may grow up into, interesting word there, into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Show up. You want to open up. Follow up so that over time you can grow up.
Yeah.
Okay, let me talk about that for just a little bit and I'm going to be done. I'll get out of your way. We're growing up into Christ. We're growing closer to Christ. We're growing up. Now, and I'll talk about this tomorrow night. When it says growing up, now listen, okay? This is super important because I think you get confused about this. Jesse, what do we want from you as adults? Money. What do you want? Okay, sounds good. Cameron, how you doing? Welcome to the service. Hey, what do we as adults want from you young people? Yes, please. Okay, no. That's too old. What are you guys doing? Okay. Here, Timmy, I hear you're the man. He's like, to love God. Really good. Hey, John, go for it. Be respectful is the things we do. Now listen, we want you to grow up in your relationship with Christ.
That's right.
I'm not done though.
Amen.
We do not want you to be adults yet.
Right.
Right.
Good. Amen.
Yes.
We don't want, listen. Some of you, not all of you, obviously. Some of you are working so hard to be an adult right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're taking care of siblings.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be too
Right.
personal, but you're taking care of siblings.
Come on now.
You feel like there's got to be at least one adult at home,
Yep.
and it's going to be you. And you're willing, out of selflessness, you're willing to sacrifice your own youth to be this adult.
Yeah.
And you hear Brother Dan, that's a mistake.
That's right.
Now, hear me. You're only going to go through high school. Most of you. Woo! If ever a pause was good. You're only going to go through high school one time.
Right.
You're going to fall in love, and I don't mean that like the world means it, but you're going to experience falling in love one time likely. Now maybe twice, but that's super rare. That's like lightning hitting the same spot twice. And I didn't say you'd fall in lust.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
You'd fall in crush.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm saying you fall in love.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to experience that once in your life. Some of the things that you have, you're going to be in youth group once in your life.
Yep.
You don't realize when you get old, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to work a job.
Right.
Yeah.
The rest of some of you guys, I got to get out there. I got to get a career. I got to get my job going. You're going to be doing that until they put you in dirt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? This is a special time.
You're right.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed, now I don't know if you guys do, but I doubt you do. Have you ever noticed they don't have camp for adults?
Right.
Where we get to go to a cool place and do fun things and have people try to help us? Yeah, I know, I was just thinking that. I was like, man, I gotta start planning this thing. 2-person cabins only though. Man, listen, you get to do that.
Right.
You get to do that. I remember, oh my word, I remember my first year out of high school, working my job. And I was like, you just don't realize I was aware of working a job for years, all this other stuff, but there were just some things I hadn't acclimated to yet as an adult. And I'm like, hey, when's Christmas break start? Dude, I had dudes laughing at me like, you get what they're like, Christmas break? I was like, yeah, what days do we get off for Christmas? They're like, Christmas Eve, Christmas.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I've been telling myself, I got like a week or 2 weeks coming up here pretty quick. And then it was like, what? 2 days? And I got to spend those days with family. Not even doing what I want. I'm like, what happened? Now listen, we want you to grow up in Christ.
Yeah.
We want you to mature in your spiritual relationship with God. And we want you to continue to progress as teenagers on your way to being adult.
Yeah.
We don't want you to be an adult right now.
Right. Yes.
Matter of fact, if you pay attention closely enough, most of your youth workers are busy trying to be teenagers. What? Who said it? I said it. Yeah. Now, let me say this too. We want you to be teenagers, but we want you to be teenagers who are growing up.
Yeah.
Good, man.
Right.
Now, you may not feel this way, but I'll tell you this. And I think some workers would back me on this. When I first showed up at camp this week and saw a predominantly younger youth group, okay, I knew some things were going to come, and they have come. You know, loud interjections, all this other stuff.
Yep.
Now, hold on. Before you think I'm taking up stones to stone you, now listen. I noticed today and last night, but today, as I preach, I don't have teenagers trying to talk to me during the message.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
This morning, after the lesson, I sat there and was having a conversation with Brother Mark, and some teenagers came by and wanted to talk to me. And instead of busting in, they stood there quietly,
Amen.
waiting.
Yeah.
They learned that within 5 days.
Mm.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're growing up.
Yeah.
We see it. We're proud of you. We're excited for you.
Yeah.
We don't want you to be an adult just yet, but we want you to keep growing up.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, let me give my last plug for this, okay? We want you to grow up in Christ.
Amen.
And Brother Dan, why do you still work with teenagers even though you don't at your church and all this other stuff? I'm really going to give you it's. Do we want to reach the teen masses? Yes, all those things. But the next generation
Yeah.
of Christian teenagers,
Yeah, it is.
I call them Gen 2s. You grew up in a Christian home. Your parents were first generation Christians.
Yes.
Your parents did not grow up in a Christian home. They didn't experience it. They don't know what it's like. You're the first in your family to grow up in a Christian home. It is a very unique journey. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Right.
And I'm gonna talk to older and younger right now. So kind of perk up more mature because I talk a little bit not cryptic, but in fundamentalism, and I mean that as a belief system, not a movement. Okay, so I want to distinguish there, but as a belief system, there are a hurt generation of second generation Christians that have risen up.
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They experience some horrible things people should not have to experience in church.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Abuse, disappointments, heartbreaks, all the while people yelling at them, telling them it's God's will.
Yeah.
Total deception and misrepresentation of God.
Good.
There wasn't somebody there like this church and this camp to help them sort through things and help them see. That's humanity.
Right.
That's
Sure.
not Christianity.
Amen.
Yep.
Christ, the scriptures, the Spirit of God never led any of those people to do any of that stuff and say the things they didn't do, things did. That was never God's will. Okay? And now we have, and I don't know if this is in Alaska or not, but let me tell you where I live. Now we have these second gens coming to adulthood. And the only thing, and you pay attention to this, the only thing they want to be is not what their parents were.
Right.
That's all they want to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Their church is dark. Do you know why? Because ours are light.
Right.
Yeah.
We sit in pews, they want to sit in movie theater seats.
Right.
We have a choir and an orchestra, they have a band.
Right.
Now they tell you, well, we can do church anyway, we can worship Jesus anyway, but at the root of what they're after, when you really start to talk to them, you find out, I just want to be the opposite
Right.
Yeah.
of what I grew up around.
Right.
People close to me have left. And maybe you're part of it. Maybe you see. Now I'm going to tell you this may surprise you. I see some things where I grew up and I disagree with it.
Right.
And I'm going to go a little bit deeper because I think I'm helping people, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this. It wasn't too long ago that my wife and I, but especially myself, I went to God and asked God, should I stay in this area, this group of ministry, if you will, in fundamentalism? I feel like I don't fit. I don't see things the way everybody does. I don't want to promote standards over God Himself.
Right.
I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I've seen it too many times and seen what it does and the results it brings. I don't want to treat our young people like they're just trash. There's so many things.
Yeah.
I don't want to cover sin.
Thank you.
Pastor so-and-so did thus and such, we'll just slip him from over there to over here. I don't want to stand up and say he has no business being a minister.
Amen.
I don't want to be a coward and hide. I don't want to do that. I want to stand up.
Thank you.
And so I asked God, I just went to God and said, God, am I in the wrong place? And God told me, I put you where I put you on purpose.
Yeah.
And this is what God told me. Be the difference that you want to see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I'll tell you this, I really feel like the Lord touched my heart and told me, I'll take care of all those people. It's not your job to go out and be against all that. It's your job to stand up and be the light, be the salt. I want you to be what I want you to be.
Good, man.
And I am passionate about being a part of a next generation Christianity that honors father and mother still,
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. Yes.
right? Doesn't spit on them. You expect Gen 1s to understand everything about Gen 2s? Are you serious? Completely different worlds. And you praise God. Your parents, listen, we're trying to drive down a gravel road. Your parents were cutting the trees down,
Right.
spiritually speaking. I know people in my church who grew up with physical, emotional, mental abuse in their home. Now are they everything they should be as parents? No. But they have given so much of their lives that their kids would have no idea the baggage that they carry. They've tried to protect their kids. We don't need to spit on those people and then go start our own kind of church. We need to thank God for them and carry the baton further. Right? And so when you start talking about next generation, man, my blood immediately starts pumping. And I'm like, yes, we want you to grow up and be that generation. And I you know, this is the other thing. Oh, man, I'm so, it didn't make sense. I grew up around this. I grew up around, everybody's got to go to Bible college. And where I grew up, it was one Bible college. Right? It was one Bible college. And if you didn't go, you were wrong with God.
Yeah.
Guys like John, who's a professional Christian, right?
Come on now. Yep.
There's no place for that nonsense.
Yeah.
Right.
I told John last night, I said, I thank God
Amen.
that Fairbanks has a Christian in the media. Because
Yeah.
I promise, where I am,
Right.
I don't think that's the case. Now, maybe God's got a Joseph tucked in there somewhere, but I'm sure not aware of him.
Yeah. Come on now.
I'm thankful
Yes.
for godly professionals.
Yeah.
If that's where God leads you.
That's right.
Okay? And as God leads you, this is the thing. Everybody's like, oh, well, you know, not everybody's called to ministry. Because this is the thing. Everybody's got to go to Bible college. Don't agree with that, even kind of.
Amen.
But then you got the guys who go, well, God's not everybody's called to ministry. Wrong.
Right.
I'll call you on the carpet on that.
Amen.
Wrong.
Amen. Come on, good.
Every member in the body,
Right.
1 Corinthians, God has set every member in the body as it's pleased Him. He's given them spiritual gifts to profit withal.
Right. Yes, sir. Amen.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Grow up,
Yeah.
and as you do, join us in this.
Amen.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Amen. Amen.
Good.
Amen.
Right?
Sir.
Come on in.
Yep.
The water is just fine. I don't, listen, I reject, kind of despise this whole thinking of, well, figure out what you want to do with your life,
Right.
and hopefully someday we'll see you somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you realize unless God calls you somewhere else,
Right.
that the ministers of Bible Baptist Church sit in this room?
Right.
Yep. Right.
Amen. Come on now.
Yes. Right.
How do you know that's God's will? Oh, this is so complicated, very complicated. God put you here,
Right.
right? We're looking for something big and nebulous. Where did God put you? This church. Where should I serve?
Yeah.
Faith Baptist Church Tacoma. No. That's just where you send your tithes. Anyways. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes.
Grow up. But grow up into the Lord
Yeah.
here.
Amen.
Now,
Good.
I'm going to close in just a second. I'm going to go to prayer, I should say. I'm going to go to prayer in just a second. Where are you at in the chain of things we just talked about?
Right.
I know there's some of you, it's like, I need to start showing up. Right?
Yeah.
And that's cool. Just own it, know it. Hey, that's my mission. I need to show up. There's others of you, and I bet I could guess fairly accurately, you need to start joining us in ministry.
Right.
If you're not already.
That's good. Come on now.
You need to come join us in ministry.
Yep.
Yes.
Come on in.
Amen.
It's good stuff.
Yes, sir.
We need you, and you want to.
That's right.
But you come serve, not because you have to, but because you believe that's what's going to please
Yeah.
God, because that's who we're serving together.
That's right.
Looking unto Jesus, the
Yeah.
author and finisher of our faith.
Amen.
Why should the ministry hurt? Because there's young people who are able, but just don't know it's their time.
Good.
2 Timothy 2:2. 2 Timothy is one of the last books that the Apostle Paul wrote while he was here on planet Earth. And he was writing it to a young man named Timothy, one of, not his only, but one of his sons in the ministry. He opens up 2 Timothy by saying, to Timothy, mine own son. Now in 1 Timothy, he says, mine own son in the faith. But in 2 Timothy, he says, mine own son.
Yes.
We got to grow up together. I love that. I've got a bond with some of those original teenagers. We just grew up together. I didn't know what I was doing, but I love God and they love God. We're all trying to figure it out together. We grew up together. And that's why I think it's so important that our young people know they belong here.
Yeah. Amen.
That this is their camp too, because we're growing up together.
Yes.
Right? And he says, he tells Timothy, and the things that thou hast heard of me. I love your pastor. He's been pastoring for 42 years. He's one of my heroes of the faith. If I could have a dream team, I could have all stars, your preacher would be on my list.
Amen.
I really mean that. That's not false flattery because I'm in his camp. I'm telling you, Pastor Duff is one of my spiritual heroes.
Yep.
God give me half the longevity he's given that man in ministry. And he's still got a love for people. Wow, that's God. And Pastor Duffett, one of my heroes, but I'm telling you this, he's getting older. My preacher, he's getting older. I talked to him today on the phone, he's getting older. And they're not going to be able to serve forever. God will bury his workers, but he will never bury his work. And we say we love these people, but what happens when they die? Does their ministry die? Does the vision die? Does the direction die?
Oh, no.
Oh, well, there's that other person. No, there's not that other person. There's you.
Yeah.
And you and I, and the things that thou hast heard of me amongst many witnesses, the same commit thou to, come on, faithful. Who's faithful? That's the people who've been showing up. Right? Faith, but who shall be able to teach others also. Brother Dan, I'm not a teacher. Yeah, but you're an example of the believer, aren't you? And as an example of the believer, we teach people this is what a Christian or a believer looks like.
Amen.
Show up. Be willing to open up. Follow up. Follow it all the way through as you grow up into Christ. Would you all stand with me together, every head bowed, every eye closed? Father, we love you so much. Thank you for this time. And Lord, you know my